Good afternoon. Welcome to Thinking is Contagious. Ask for you to keep supporting us the way that you have. If you find our talks here informative, thought provoking, please hit that subscribe button. Let's get this out and see if we can get it enough in front of as many people as possible to get feedback and to grow our thoughts and our consciousness towards the many different aspects that we try to touch upon. I've spent a little bit of time. One of my sons actually gave me this a few days ago, and I'm very skeptical, and I started digging and doing some research into it, and I really didn't feel comfortable talking about it until now. And I'm sure you've seen some of the talk on the internet about a silver bullet, a magic bullet cure for COVID that's being ignored or overlooked. There's a Dr. Richard Bartlett from Odessa, Texas. Granted, conservative point of view, absolutely. And also an individual that has been was appointed in Texas by Richard Perry when he was governor, conservative, Republican, onto a board for health, public health, served 7 years as an advisor on that board. So his background is from a conservative political views. Let's acknowledge that straight up front. His position, the doctor's position, is that there is an effective cure, an effective treatment for coronavirus, and that is the steroid budesonide. It's asthma medicine. He administers it with a nebulizer in conjunction with antibiotics. His claim is that he has a 100% success rate. Doesn't have numbers as to how many people, which many of the critics point to as proof that you got to take his claims with a grain of salt. And yeah, it's not a scientific study. Absolutely agreed. And that's one of the reasons why I've really spent a couple of days trying to analyze this as best I can. He has several testimonials, people with cancer, people with obesity, people with other factors which will exacerbate the virus if they get it, and could be of concern to people with these factors being in a high risk. He has testimonials of people who are quoted as saying that the relief from the symptoms, the relief from the shortness of breath, the chest pain, the tightness in the chest, the discomfort was immediate. It was with the first treatment of the budesonide. Budesonide, as I said, through a nebulizer, it is a very safe, FDA-approved steroid. It is a steroid which is used on infants. It is a steroid. All medicine has some potential side effects. I'm not telling you it's pristine. No one ever has had any side effects from it, but it's a very safe steroid. And the claim that as to 100% success rate and the effectiveness of it may be something that you can take exception to because you don't have that scientific evidence. You don't have those 2 years of clinical trials. You don't have tens of thousands of people sample size to base it on. But I point to your situation. If we have a situation here where the doctor is claiming that this works, if we have a situation where the National Institute of Health, the CDC, have recently pointed out the fact that a different steroid, has proven very effective with people who are on respirators in helping them with the COVID. If we have that, and we suddenly now are given this information that this steroid, which is safe, works. If you find yourself in a situation where you are high risk, you are in extreme discomfort, you are at risk of hospitalization, why is using, if you choose to pursue it, like a clinical trial, if you're on your last stages of cancer, if you have the ability to be involved in clinical trials on medicines and medications, treatments that are not FDA approved, that are being tested at this point in order to attempt to save your life. If you are in that type of situation with COVID, you're talking about a drug that's cost-effective, $200 the entire treatment, safe, FDA approved. Go to your doctor under a doctor's care and ask to receive the treatment. What do you have to lose at that point? Especially with a drug deemed safe. What do you have to lose at that point? COVID is an inflammatory virus, a virus that causes inflammation of the respiratory system. The steroids are anti-inflammatory. The research is all pointing towards the steroids being effective. The doctor makes claims that the reason that the deaths in Taiwan and Singapore and Japan, they're so low is because of the use of the inhaled steroids. I can't tell you that I've researched that. There is a lot of controversy about that. Many of the naysayers point to the fact that those countries did more origin tracing of the virus, social separation, quarantining, the already existing predisposition towards the use of face masks in Japan. And, all those factors come into play, but the steroid may also influence some of that. And while you may choose and I may choose to say, we'd like to have more empirical evidence of this, I think that the thing that swayed me to create this broadcast and say that I believe it's worth including the budesonide in a treatment program for those at risk is because I read about the naysayers. I read the naysayers saying why they're skeptical or why they say that that budesonide is not effective or is not to be considered at this point. I read their reasons, and I'm going to summarize the reasons and I'm going to read it from a story here, an article here. Dr. Don L. Goldenberg, professor of medicine at Tufts University School of Medicine. And the doctor goes into several details about the steroids and about the COVID and everything. But here's the key, and here's what I'm finding, that the people who aren't on board with this, it's not so much that they say that it doesn't work, it's that they say, you haven't proven to me that it works. Well, if you're in a life or death situation, how much time do we need to allow for the proof? Could mean the difference between survival and death. But here's what I've been finding is the common element with all who are downplaying Dr. Bartlett's claim. It says, and I quote from Dr. Goldenberg, however, there are no randomized clinical trials and only anecdotal evidence of efficacy of nasal steroids on COVID COVID-19 infection. Until then, such medication should be used for potential or active COVID infection only under a physician's supervision. Absolutely. Under a doctor's supervision. The fact that there's no anecdotal, that's only anecdotal, excuse me, doesn't preclude someone in a life or death situation from trying this. This may very well be that silver bullet. One thing is for certain, that if you are in a situation where you deem it important to attack this virus because of your underlying conditions, all the options available should be open to you on FDA-approved medication. I think that the fact that we are fighting this points back to several things, in my opinion. Number one is, and it's almost in everything, that we have this back and forth with all sectors of our society, of our economy, of our daily practices. It's liability. No one wants to say, yes, I stand behind this, without the proper documentation to serve as a mitigating circumstance in case you're sued. Say, hey, I follow protocol. No one wants to take that risk. So that's number one. Number two, cannot be overlooked, is money. $200 treatment, existing drug, Big Pharma doesn't need to create a vaccine. Big Pharma doesn't need to make billions and billions and billions of dollars. You don't need to fix what ain't broken, reinvent the wheel. It's already there. It's readily available. Oh my, what if it works? And finally, and not to be made any lesser of a factor or influence, is the fact that this is still a political weapon. And the numbers on mortality will never be fully accepted, explained, and put in proper perspective until after the election. Then everything you'll see will, all of a sudden, the light at the end of the tunnel will become very evident. It's a political weapon as well, and it's a huge factor in the mandate to keep the economy closed down, to keep the public panicked, to keep a negative mindset against the administration in order to achieve the objective started 2016, which is overturn that election and get Donald Trump out of office. That is a huge factor in all of this. So, like I said, it took me a long time to really go through this, analyze it. I'm not saying that the claims are 100% bulletproof at this point, but if I was in a situation, or if my parents were in a situation due to circumstances making them high risk, extremely high risk at 94 years old, and they were faced with this, getting this virus, and were suffering with symptoms that made their life very difficult, their being very difficult, no problem going with this treatment, because I really believe that it makes sense. Anti-inflammatory, steroid, safe for an inflammatory lung disease, respiratory disease, makes absolute sense. So the fact that this is being quashed, to me, indicates that there's probably something there that needs to be reviewed. Hit that subscribe button if you like it. Thank you.